Hey guys, so I'm going to let you know this is a longer video if you haven't noticed the time at the bottom of the YouTube video. The reason why, I'm going to go over how I am going to install my PAPAGO P3 dash cam. Have it right here. So it has just a small screen. It's not touch screen. There's 4 buttons at the bottom, and you have the camera at the back. The power switch is right here, which whenever you turn it on, it prevents you from taking the SD card out. Good design. And then on the other side, you have USB and mini HDMI. Probably won't ever use that. It has a suction cup mount, which will attach to my dashboard. So yeah, that's the unit. It's fairly small. Not going to give it any type of aesthetic appeal type of thing. It's kind of big and bulky, but overall it'll fit on the dashboard and won't be too obtrusive to my vision, or just being ugly. So with that said, it also comes with a power cable, and all this does is you can plug it into your 12-volt outlet, and out comes USB. It's a mini USB cable. One nice thing about this cable, and what a lot of companies don't do, is they have put the voltage regulator at the output side. So 12 volts comes in on this side, 5 volts comes out on that side, and you can see that they have kept the cable short between the regulator and the USB cable part. And then they give you an abundance of cable in the center, so I imagine it could probably reach all the way to the back of my car if I needed to. So at this time, I'm going to switch over to kind of how I want to install it. And I guess you'll also kind of get to see my car a little bit and how it's normally set up, minus the multimeter, which you'll see in a second, I'm sure. Alright, so this is take 3. I realized I had an issue whenever I turned the key off and then turned it back on, that my radio was triggering my phone to stop recording because it's connected to Bluetooth. I wanted to show you, so here's my car. Here's what I drive every day. It's a 2014 Subaru WRX. 5-speed manual versus the 6-speed in the new ones. I don't mind the 5-speed. A lot of people say they're fragile. I've also read that the newer 5-speeds are solid as a rock. So, yeah, I haven't had any issues with it. The other thing is, a 5-speed can get up to 60 miles per hour faster than the 6 speeds, because to get up to 60, I do first gear and then second gear, and that's it. I'm good. The 6 speeds, you have to go first, second, and then third. Anyway, yeah, whatever. So how am I going to mount this? Well, obviously it's going to go on the dashboard. I'm going to try to mount it up here a little bit, and hopefully the suction cup holds it well. And to power it, I showed you before the USB cable. So we have the cable here, then the USB, so I need to find a 12-volt power source. With my car, I have 2 options. I have a switched power source. This comes on with the key, and cue the video pausing before. It shouldn't do it this time since the Bluetooth is turned off, but I turned the key on. You can see it's radio's on, everything else is on in the car, and this comes on with it, so it's on accessory power. The other power option would be to feed off of the map lights up here, which have 12 volts on them all the time. Unfortunately, the manual does say if you leave 12 volts turned on all the time, it will record all the time, and therefore it will drain your battery. So I'm going to figure out a way to tap into the wire up in here for my mirror to power the camera. So let's take this down. I'm gonna go ahead and mount the camera up here. So yeah, let's do that. Luckily I have another car right in front of me, so I can kind of get an idea. And for this, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to plug it into the 12-volt outlet and kind of get it situated, because I want to figure out what type of cable length I need. More than likely than not, I'm going to leave some of the excess cable and just stuff it up here, I'm going to mount it in such a way to where it doesn't rattle. I have enough rattles in this car as it is. So anyway, you'll see, plug in the 5 volts, and there it is. The way this thing works, if you haven't seen anything else how it works, it turns on, and as soon as it turns on, this green light will turn red, indicating that it is recording. Well, that's how it's supposed to work. There it goes. So now it is recording video. You can see the screen turned off, so it's not a distraction. You can easily turn the screen back on. It gives you a couple different options. Yeah, I don't think we're going 9 miles per hour. Also don't think it has a satellite yet. But you can change this. You can look at what the camera's seeing. It's indicating that I need to turn my headlights on because it's dim outside. Well, I'm also just in a dark car. Map view, I don't think I'm ever going to use. And then just a regular clock. And you can see, I don't know if you can see it, the clock on my dash is actually set correctly. So let's go to the camera view. This thing is a little slow for my liking, but I guess it works. One thing, remove the tape off the suction cup. Probably won't stick to the windshield very well otherwise. What I'm going to try to do is get it as high up as possible. Mount it to the left side of the mirror for 2 reasons. One, it's closer to me and I'm going to be the one using it the most. The other reason is the cable comes out of the right side of it, which I'm going to try to route up here. Now there's this big block off of it, but I have to figure out something to do with mount it back here to where it, you know, again, won't rattle. And then run this cable up to here where I'll tap into the same harness that this is plugged into. So this seems like a pretty good location. You can probably see a good image of the back of my head. And my wife says I'm going bald. We'll see about that. So I'm going to move it down a little bit so it clears the mirror. Probably want to leave a little room to let the mirror move around. Probably there would be good. And I have a good view of the car. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pause the video after this. So it's stuck to the windshield. Oh, that wasn't locking it. So now it should be somewhat locked into place, and then attach it down. You can see it's all wiggly. Also, kind of did it crooked. Let's see, because I am OCD. And my wife is staring at me right now like I'm weird. And she's leaving me. Oh. I haven't even been with her for a few months and she's already trying to leave me. Well, okay, so it's firmly mounted. Tighten up all the bolts. I like it. So give me just a second. Okay, so in preparation to kind of give you an idea of how it looks, I did notice something that kind of irritates me. So right now it's at the full brightness. If I go down to the mid brightness, oop, wrong button. Don't know if you can hear it, but it emits a very high-pitched noise, which would be from the LCD backlight driver. That kind of sucks. The good news is that I don't really like that mid setting. I'd either go for this one, the lowest setting, and it's quiet at that setting, and it's also quiet at the highest setting. So let me do that and press OK, and then we'll go back, and you can see it takes its time. So let's see how it looks. So you see the light turn green to indicate that it's no longer recording. And if you can see, it is recording the back of the Corvette. So, to give you an idea, it is pretty wide frame. This would be a lot of space wasted. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn it up a little bit. So I've noticed something else that's kind of weird. This voltage regulator gets kind of warm. So what it's doing, it is converting 12 volts down to 5 volts.
And if I had to guess, there's a linear voltage regulator inside of this thing, which steps the voltage down essentially by burning off the extra power. It's a resistor in all essence. I can't say that it is because it's a regulated voltage on the output, but as a resistor, you pump current through the resistor and it puts off heat. And yeah, so that's what this is doing. This thing does take a little bit of power to run, and you can feel the power coming out of it from here. Okay, so what I have here is a Fluke 87V. It's a multi-purpose multimeter, a fairly high-end one. Fluke's always a high-end type of tool. And I want to measure current. So for those of you that don't know how to measure current with a multimeter, you do not use this voltage probe. You either use the A, which is typically for a higher current application, has a current shunt between this input and this input, or this jack and this jack. I shouldn't say input because one's going to be an output. Or you have an option of using the milliamp or microamp input. Now for this device, since it does put off some heat, I have a feeling it might be a little over 400 milliamps, but it's also USB, which means it should be less than 500 milliamps. Just for safety reasons, what I'm going to do, I'm going to plug it into the amp setting. And whenever you turn the multimeter on, it's going to beep at you to indicate that you don't want to hook this up to a voltage source because you will fry the fuse in the multimeter. So as soon as you switch it to here, you can see the beeping stops. Now by default, don't know if you can see that, you can see the AC symbol. So what it's trying to do is going to measure voltage and alternating current. Cars, batteries in general, I mean all batteries are a DC power source or voltage source. So if you try to measure an AC current going through a DC circuit, you're going to get 0. So to switch that, you can see there's a flat line with a couple dots under that indicates that is the direct current. So I can hit the shift key, switch to DC current. Now my multimeter is set up. So now set this to the side for a second. And what I'm going to do, I have this really long cable. I have unplugged it. I'm going to unplug it from the other side as well. There is a capacitor in this thing, and I don't know if it's dumb enough to put the power back through the other side. Now I don't want to cut it yet. What I'm going to do, I have some wire strippers, and I'm going to put the cable in the middle in hopes that I can separate the cable just slightly. Hopefully I don't tear the cable in the process. Inside of this cable there are 2 wires, a black one and a red one. Hopefully you know what the rest of the story is. What I'm going to do, I'm going to cut, it doesn't matter which one, because this is the complete circuit. You have power going this way, and then you have power coming back the other way. So the current on both sides is going to be exactly the same. I like red, so I'm going to pick red. Why not? Okay, so I have small wire cutters, and then I have the cable here. I'm grabbing everything with the cable. So I have the cable here, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to cut the red wire right in half so that I have 2 ends, like that. I want to take the multimeter probes, and I have alligator clips on the end. I'm going to hook one to this one and one to this one. Now obviously this isn't going to work because there's still insulation on the wire. So let me strip the wire first, but this is where what I'm aiming for. So yeah, whatever. So now I have 2 ends. If you can see it's clean metal. It's not copper wiring, which I'm not a big fan of, but maybe it's tin copper. I don't know. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook the black one here. Maybe if I can get a good grip on it. Might be easier said than done. There we go. And then I'm going to hook the red one right here in hopes that it will clamp down good. Does not appear to want to clamp down very well. So if it's not clamping down, I'm going to twist the wire keep it from spreading out. Let me see if that will hold it better. Anyway, that's good enough to test with. If you're not comfortable with this, this is a 12-volt system. More than likely there's a fuse in here. I don't know for sure. Don't really care though, because there's nothing for this to short out on in my car. So I can touch all the plastic, I can touch these two together, nothing will happen. So next what I'm going to do, I'm going to plug it back into the power outlet. Just kind of let those sit there. Okay, so now I have it set up. You can see my multimeter here showing amps and DC. I have it on the 10 amp range, so it can measure up to 10 amps, and I guarantee it's not going to be up to 10 amps going through this little cable. Next, I'm going to plug it into the dash cam, and you will see that in a moment the power should come on. Now, what more than likely happened is my red cable fell off. So let's hook that back up. Now we have power. And honestly, the range on this, so it says it's pulling 200 milliamp or so. I don't really care that much. I'm just kind of curious how much this thing pulls normally. So now the power is off, and it's still pulling, actually it's pulling more current now, and the reason why is because the camera has turned on. If we wait a minute, you will see the screen turn off. Okay, so the screen has now turned off. The current is still reading about 300 milliamps. So the next step will be removing the cover for my light. You don't want to just stick a screwdriver in here because the metal will mess up the plastic here. So I just have a plastic separation tool that I think I got with like fixing one of my old iPhones. And you just want to kind of go a little bit at a time. So start prying on that side down, and then go on this side and do the same. And once you get both sides down a little bit, just pull, it comes out. Pull the lights out. I mean, there's nothing to it. You just grab it and pull, and that's it. After you get both lights removed, go ahead and pop your hood and disconnect the battery, because if this is turned on, you have live 12 volts here, and you're going to be sticking a metal screwdriver into the hole to unscrew it, which not exactly a bright idea. Well, it will be bright for like a split second, but not very smart. Okay, so at this point, I'm starting to get into some electrical stuff. I'm going to be sticking a screwdriver up in my map light. Wow, there's my big finger. I'm going to stick a screwdriver up in the map light next to some live contacts, which makes me just a little bit uncomfortable. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to unplug or disconnect my battery. It's very easy to do. Grab the latch. It's easy to do with two hands. There we go. Can anybody spot the battery? Yeah, it's right there. Little tip, most of the time the nut on this is a 10 millimeter. Another tip, always start with the negative, because if you slip and your wrench hits something else, like say your frame, well, this extension to the frame, nothing will happen. So always start with your negative. Okay, well, there's one good use to the Corvette. It's got a luggage rack in the back, which holds all my wrenches very easily. Since there's a bolt hanging off of it, or there's a pretty long bolt, so I'm going to use a deep socket. See, 10 millimeter and 10 millimeter. Grab the medium ratchet, do all of this one-handed. Yes, let's see if I was right. Oh, it's difficult looking through the viewfinder. And look at there, I was right the first time. What a surprise. Just loosen it, maybe like one full turn, probably don't even need that much. Now it's loose enough. Now, whenever you disconnect this, do note that a couple things will happen. Your car is probably going to run funny after that, because it's got to recalibrate all of its systems. yeah, cars today are really smart. They use computers within them. I actually don't know where the ECU or the ECM is on this car. I think it might be over there. You can see the big wiring harness. Probably goes down to wherever it is down there. Another thing, your clock's going to be reset, and more than likely all of your FM radio presets will be gone. So, with that said, who cares? Give it a couple wiggles and it comes right off. Just kind of put it to the side. It shouldn't wiggle loose. I think it'll be fine. Okay, now then, my power has been disconnected, so there's no risk of me shorting anything out, blowing any fuses, which I don't mind not doing tonight. So there's 2 screws up here. I'm going to unscrew it. I say screws, they're actually bolts, as you can see there. There you go. So there's just a short little bolt. Now I'm just going to set it down and I guess the little coin tray underneath my shifter. Looks like it's about to fall out. Okay, anyway, let's go to the second one. And I have had this down before, it's why I knew that these were bolts and not like sheet metal screws. And you might see why here in a second. We'll find out. So the Bluetooth microphone in this car is really noisy. And I stuffed a whole bunch of foam up there trying to insulate it. Anyway, okay, so this is down. So what I did is I unplugged my map light from the harness up here. There's a little latch that you probably need, I don't know, something small to push on it. I ended up using my little plastic tool to kind of push on it and pull the cable and disconnect it. So there is a separate wiring harness or a separate cable running down to the mirror, which I'm going to tap into. And that harness is right here. Now, how do I know it's the same? Well, one, it goes in that direction. Also, all the wires on the back of the rear view mirror are black, and all of these wires are black. Now, the funny thing is that there are 3 cables. I don't know what those 3 do. If I had to guess, one is there to, obviously turn the 12 volts on. One is a ground. The other one, if I had to guess, is to detect when the lights are turned on. If not that, it is a constant 12 volt power source. In any case, I'm going to reconnect the 12 volt battery at this time and probe it and see what happens. Okay, so the 12 volt power is now turned on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to unplug this. Now this latch looks like it's a lot easier, and it is. It's so much easier. Cool. Okay, and there are 3 pins in there. Unfortunately, it's going to be very nerve-wracking for me to detect which one is power and which one is ground. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my trusted multimeter, I'm going to switch it back to the voltage setting. I'm going to find something in my car that is connected to ground, and as a tip, I know all my door latches are, but if I open my door, actually I can take my keys out and it won't matter. Open my door, I can connect it to the latch, maybe. It's a pretty big latch, so I don't know if I can get it to stick on there. We'll see if that works. Okay, so I'm going to see first if one of them is a constant 12 volt source. I don't know how I can show you this, but I will try. No, this is just going to be dangerous, so you're going to have to take my word for it. If one of them is constant 12 volts. So I'm going to set the multimeter on the seat so I can read it. Now I've got the cables going everywhere now. Okay, so be very careful and only touch one of these at a time. That one is showing 0 volts. The center one is showing 0 volts. And this outside one is showing 0 volts. So that tells me that none of them are always on. Okay, so I've determined that the two wires I need are the yellow wire with the green stripe and the black wire. This other wire looks like brown with yellow stripe. I don't know exactly what it does, but here's my reasoning of why I picked the wires I did. The yellow wire with the green stripe has 12 volts applied to it when I turn the key on. That's very very indicative that that is the 12 volt power supply. Now the other two wires, the black and the brown with the yellow stripe, measured 0 volts. However, when I did a continuity test with the frame, the black wire showed 7 ohms and the brown wire with the yellow stripe showed about 10 kilo ohms. So that is definitely not a ground signal. So I'm going to pick ground from the black and plus 12 volts from the green with the yellow stripe. Okay, so one difficulty I was having was getting this wire routed up through here to a point where I can see it. So what I'm going to do, a zip tie, a piece of wire would work, and you can see it's all the way through to the dash over here. So I have the wire, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to tape it to the zip tie and then pull it through. Okay, as you can see, I just have a little bit of tape on it to hold it in, and I'm going to pull it through now. Just kind of be careful with it because you don't want to pull it off. So let's see. And right here, there's the cable. So that's probably going to be the hardest part of the install. Instead of cutting factory wiring, which unfortunately I have lots and lots of extra wire here, I'm going to cut the wire to this for the mirror, because guess what? Later on, if I need to, I can replace this very easily. This one, not so much. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier in the video, they gave you plenty of wire. It's routed to this thing, it's coming out here. I don't want to keep all of this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave a little bit. I might cut it off, maybe about here. That gives me plenty of extra if I ever want to move this thing a little bit, that I can do that. But yeah, I don't want all the extra cable. More cable, more wire, or more weight. Not too much, but you get the point. There's no need for it. So I'm gonna stick it with this much, and the next step will be tapping into these wires here and wiring this up, which will require a little bit of soldering. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, to make this process just slightly easier, I unplugged the other end of this cable from the back of the mirror, so I was able to pull it up a little bit. Okay, so like I mentioned a minute ago, I'm going to solder these cables. You can see I cut the ground one first. Maybe. I have some heat shrink. Now this heat shrink is a special marine one, which means it has a little bit of adhesive on the inside that seals it from the elements. I like it because it doesn't vibrate off. You don't need to go crazy with the length. I'd say I am giving myself about an inch or so. So got both wires there, and no problem, you can go ahead and twist these two together. Now you can see I have both the wire for the dash cam and the wire for the mirror going the same way out of the heat shrink, and that's just, the routing makes more sense that way. So I'm going to slide the heat shrink on, give yourself some room to solder, and then you can get this other piece and twist them together. So just give yourself, a little bit of a twist. You can see it's together. And all I have is just a piece of solder. So here's my soldering iron, solder. And the point with soldering is to not dab on solder to the iron. Although it does, if you get a little bit of solder on there, it does help with heat transfer. But you want to ultimately apply the solder to the wire. And that's how you know you get a good good connection. So apply heat to the wire, bring solder up to the wire. I got a glob going, and it looks like it's gonna drop. I don't want it to drop. Okay, so all I did, I don't care about the solder dropping. What I do care about is the solder dropping onto parts of my car. It has a good tendency when hot to discolor plastic, so I just put down a simple cotton towel. It's not going to catch on fire, especially from a little piece of molten solder dripping on it. So no worries there. I'm going to go ahead and apply heat again. Okay, so right now I just have a little blob hanging off from my previous attempt. Apply a little bit of pressure to it. Might take, you can see it's not exactly sticking. It's because there's contaminants, but the solder has a Rawson core, which means there's flux built into the solder. Now I got a good blob there. Try to spread it out. There we go. Here is the soldering job. What you want to see is you want it to be really smooth. You don't want excess, and you can see here there is definitely not excess, but the whole thing is shiny around, which means the solder did wick into all of the copper fibers. So the next step is simply to slide the heat shrink down over the connection point and apply heat. Okay, so you can see where I previously burnt the heat shrink, but there is my new soldering job. You can see that you can still kind of see the fibers, but there's solder in place. So I'm going to slide the heat shrink over the cable. It's going to be fun though. Just hook all this back up. Okay. So next I'm going to apply some heat to the heat shrink. Doesn't take very long, and it is secured.
Okay, so a day after the install, I ended up not recording the rest of the procedure of reinstalling everything. Put the 2 bolts back in, put the 2 bulbs in the map light, hook the battery up, turn the car on, cross your fingers, nothing smoked, yay. Yeah, so I've had it for a day. The advanced driver assistance systems ended up being more of a nuisance than helping me out. It just randomly beeped a whole lot when I was driving it on the road. Probably can be attributed to the fact that my car mount for my phone is within the frame of the video. So there's just a big like black spot where you can't see anything, and it's trying to pick up the road whenever it sees half of that. So yeah, I can understand why it doesn't work. So I disabled the ADAS systems. I'm not going to give up my car mount. I like it. It holds my phone. There's no other place in my car to put my big phone. So yeah, I call it a successful install. Let me, I guess, show you the final install. Thanks. If you like the video, you know, like it, subscribe. I'm not being paid anything. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm not even a YouTube, I guess, affiliated person yet, so I'm not getting paid for any of this. But it is kind of cool to have people follow me and see, you know, what happens in my life. Yeah, so thanks for watching. If you stuck out for all 30 minutes of it, I really do appreciate it. I know I'm probably not the most exciting person to listen to. So yeah, have a great day, and look forward to seeing some more of these videos in the future.